Sportsline Podcast here on the CHCH and Parrot multimedia platform. I'm Bubba O'Neill. As you know, this is a landing spot in the 905 that puts teams, athletes, executives, and broadcasters in the forefront as we love to reveal stories about those individuals. Well, it is a success story that should make every Canadian sports fan smile. Although this Ottawa resident grew up as a football fan at his youth, his love, knowledge, and thirst for business was refined at Queen's University. His early days at TSN in 1997 began as an intern. Amazingly, less than a decade later, Stewart Johnston was promoted to Vice President of Programming. But this journey gets real interesting. In April, the Bell Media Senior Vice President took the mantle from Randy Ambrosie as the 15th Commissioner of the Canadian Football League. In the words of Joe Bowen, holy mackerel, we got the commissioner in the house here. This is unbelievable. Stu, thank you so much for joining us. It's really been anticipated. I know you're kind of talking to a lot of people from all over the country, so for you to stop into Hamilton and come see us, we really appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Bubba, and I love talking football all over the country at any time. This is great.
Yeah, let's start off this. I want to know about you. Not so much of what you do now, but I think it's important to go back into the archives. And I'm talking a young Stu Johnston. What were you like?
Well, I grew up with a passion for sport right from a young age. Loved playing sport. You name the sport, I was probably playing it. But if I go right back, if we're going to the early days of Stu Johnston, grew up in Ottawa, and my next door neighbor was the legendary Ottawa Rough Rider punter, Jerry Organ. Really an outstanding Canadian, and he had a son, Jamie Organ, who was my age. And so at 3, 4, 5 years old, we would, our parents would babysit each other, and I got to know the Organ family, and then of course got introduced to CFL football through that connection. And one of my earliest memories, 5 years old, 1976, Ottawa Rough Riders are in the Grey Cup, and the only memory I have, the distinct memory, is Jerry Organ faked a punt. And of course, he was the one guy I was focused on. Imagine I'm focused on the punter is my favorite player.
Kickers.
And as kickers, can you believe it? And he took that 52 yards. I remember his arms swinging wildly as he was cutting through defenders. Not a natural runner.
No.
And jumping up and down on the couch with my family, all with this personal connection in. And from that moment onwards, I was hooked. I just loved football.
And that's Canadian football, obviously, right?
Yeah.
And I think what people don't realize here, and I know this is one of the things that you're working on right now, and I think every commissioner has been working on it at that time, because I'll remember I'll tell you my first little incarnation with the Canadian Football League is my father. My father bringing me to games, and at that time we lived in Burlington and Oakville, but we went to Argo games and Ticat games, and I go far back. I think it was 1980, and the Argonauts were horrible. And the Edmonton Eskimos at that time were spectacular. And they were undefeated, I believe, about 14-0, and the Argos got their first win of the season against the Eskimos. I'm talking exhibition stadium, probably 40 to 50,000 people, if you can, people that remember that venue, and people running on the field because the Argos were so bad, and this was such a shocking victory. And that stuck with me forever. And I just wanted to go to games. And I would presume that sticks with you today.
It does. It does. Both going to games in Ottawa growing up. I have that memory of 76, but I also have the memory of the 1981 Grey Cup, where those same Edmonton Eskimos were playing the Ottawa Rough Riders. J.C. Watts as quarterback. The most incredible first half for the underdog Rough Riders. This game was a lock. We had it in the bag, and sure enough, the Edmonton team did what the Edmonton team does, and came back and won that Grey Cup. But so that taste of football, just I want to go to games, and I wanted to experience that. There was a Grey Cup in Ottawa I went to, very cold, but still very memorable. It's an incredible sport and an incredible experience.
I think of myself, I've only wanted to do two things in my life, and I feel very fortunate to be sitting here talking with you with a microphone in my. I wanted to be a sportscaster or an air traffic controlman, and my parents kind of pushed me away from that because at the time, being an air traffic controlman, a lot of stress. There was just a lot of things, reasons maybe not to be in that. So I feel very lucky. What did you want to do when you were growing up? I mean, who wants to grow up and be the CFL commissioner?
I certainly did not have that on the list of things I could become. I got my first taste of business in school, took a business degree at Queen's. I ran my own summer window washing business and kind of understood entrepreneurial aspects to that. And then a key moment in my life was, and this is dating myself, I was in third year at university and I walked past the bulletin board because we had bulletin boards back then. There was no internet.
You can say that to me.
And I saw a posting for a job where you would take a year off school, delay graduating by a year, and get real life, 16 months of real life experience, come back and finish your fourth year, but you have that incredible experience. And that job that popped for me was with Gatorade in the marketing department. And so I on a whim went for the interview. I got the job. I delayed graduating by a year. I worked 16 months in Peterborough, Ontario at Quaker Oats, which owned Gatorade at the time. And it was the most fabulous experience. And what that showed me is that I could combine my love of sport with a love of business. And I came out of that thinking that's where I want to be. I got to figure something out with how do I get there. And then I realized, a date in 1984 when TSN launched was one of my favorite days of my life because I got to have on television 24-hour sports. Now, of course, at the time, that was a lot of Australian rules football and billiards.
Yes, it was.
But I didn't care. Yep. And the countdown to the 6:30 sports desk was everything to me, so I could see highlights of what was going on. So I banged on the door of TSN. I said, here I am. I will do anything. Please let me in. After a few more attempts at banging on that door, they let me in as that young intern, and I couldn't believe my luck. This was a dream job. I got to sit and TVs on the wall playing sports all day, and I got to talk sports all day and then start to combine that with business. It was amazing. None of that prepared me for a commissioner's role, or had me thinking about a commissioner's role, I should say.
But it set it all up, though, and I understand that. I mean, that feeling of, because in the beginning days of Sportsnet, and I spent, 11 years there.
Yes.
And from the beginning, so I get that, being so young and then seeing these people that you're looking up to on air, and I mean, spinning the prompter, like even everything, getting them coffee, rolling at the time copies.
Yes.
Here's your script, sir. You know what I mean? Jim Van Horn actually was at Sports at one time.
That's right.
Oh my God, Jim Van Horn, the mustache.
Yes.
So amazing to think of that, that you're working with these people and in the field that you really, really love and you respect and that you want to be a part of. But as you said, there's a business side of it for you. And like I said earlier off the top, you didn't take very long to sort of figure out what you want to do. I think of the Keith Pellys. I think of the Scott Moores of the world.
Yep.
You guys are in a different brain set than at least than I am. And you knew what you wanted to do.
I did. As soon as I got that taste, and I ended up just, the job that they gave me was a junior network scheduler. So I was plugging in World's Strongest Man at 2 p.m. on a Monday to try and drive audience. And that got me thinking, how do I drive more audience? How do I deliver audience to the prime time schedule, which they wouldn't let the junior guys schedule, but I wanted to deliver audience that way. Then how does that relate to advertising? And then ultimately, how is it going to drive subscription? And that got me excited. And I'm very competitive by nature, and I like to win. And so you at Sportsnet, I was competing with. Anywhere else that might be showing something contrasting to what TSN had, I was competing with, and I wanted to win. And I judged myself based on audience. That's what my goal was to deliver that. And then ultimately, when I began negotiating the rights deals, I judged myself on our profitability, on our business metrics. And then when you can tie those two things together and you can launch a TSN 2 at the time and then ultimately launch to TSN 5 and drive business models forward, be creative, think of new ways to attack a business that had shifting sands underneath our feet. You know how dynamic this business is. People ask me all the time, how did you stay 28 years at one company in one job in one industry? I said, because this industry is as fast moving as any I could ever experience. I learned every day. I was challenged every day, and I loved that about going into work. So I got very excited about delivering against business metrics, and at the same time doing that all wrapped in the halo of sport.
How did all of that experience transfer to saying, I'm ready to be the CFL commissioner?
Well, like we talked about off the top, I didn't have that at all in my focus. I had just taken over a new role at Bell Media, where at that time I had been running ad sales for across every platform. I then took over content in news, the entire news division, the local division, things that you can relate to here. I just taken over about 6 months earlier. And I was going to LA and I was negotiating deals for Crave for entertainment content. Super exciting, more learning for me. And so I was head down and managing a very large portfolio. And then someone grabbed me by the shoulder and said, can we just sit and talk for a bit? And let's think about this role that became available once Randy announced he was departing. And so I caught my breath and I thought about it, and I thought, my love for the CFL goes back to early childhood. My passion for football in general is incredibly strong. As much as I'm a fan of all sport, football is number one for me. And the business, while challenged, like almost every business is challenged with disruption and a fight for attention from the consumer and ticket buyer and audience, is on pretty good footing. Some increased ratings. I'd been a partner with the CFL through TSN for 25 years, so I had a great understanding of the league. I'd seen it through many ups and downs and franchises leaving and coming back. This was a strong ownership group, as strong as I've ever seen in my time with the CFL. So some solid footing and great opportunities as well as challenge. And I thought about my skill set of someone who's been in the content game, who thinks about delivering against audience, who has a passion for sport, who thinks about things from an entertainment perspective as much as a sport perspective,
for sure,
and who likes to drive revenue. I thought these are some skills that I've honed over 28 years that I think I could bring to this role and help take the league to the next level.
So you take the job, the press conference, all of it, the handing of the first football, which I could just see the pride in you. It was just beaming. It was amazing to see. But at the core of it, every new commissioner that comes in evaluates what they had previously and says, I want to do better. And from what I'm hearing, you're a pretty competitive guy. You want to win. What do you see in the Canadian Football League that you can make it better? What needs to be changed? What can you do to affect this league?
Well, I'm not going to point to a specific thing that needs to be changed. I think I'm going to look at areas of focus. And one area of focus for me is growing the game of football. And I think we have such a tremendous opportunity with an already an explosion in flag football that has already begun. And I'm a firm believer, because this is the greatest sport in the world, that the more you can get kids with a football in their hands, throwing, catching, running, learning some tactics, learning some plays, and flag is such a wonderful way to introduce them to the game. And from there, they become a family of ticket buyers if they're in a local market that has a team, or they become viewers at home. They might graduate into contact football and go from there. They could be a future referee. Who knows? We just want more people playing football. We know flag football is coming to the Olympics in 2028. I think that's going to be a big deal. The NFL has already announced that they're going to allow one roster player per team to try out and compete for the American team, or I guess any team, depending where they're from. It's a little harder for us because of our season is in mid-swing.
I was going to say we're in mid-season, right?
Yes. But I can tell you I'm very motivated to figure out a way where CFL players could be made available to play for that team if possible. And think about that. Think about CFL players at a level of the Olympics and the exposure and awareness that brings, playing against NFL players, playing with NFL players on a team. I think that is just such an exciting opportunity for us. And so I want to grow the game of football. I think it's already happening. We see great success here in Hamilton. The Ticats have done a great job with the flag football program. The clubs across the country are doing the same thing. So let's grow the game of football, grow the passion for this game. And I think football is having a moment. So is Canada. Canada's having a moment right now. And there is a feeling of patriotism that I don't know if I've seen in recent memory. I think people appreciate what is truly authentically a big major Canadian sports league, a league that is played in Canada, made in Canada, and I think we need to take advantage of that and say, hey, this is who we are. We're authentically Canadian, and we're in 9 markets. We don't play anywhere else. Let's embrace that. I've talked about entertainment. I want to continue to think about decisions that are made through the lens of entertainment. How do we are in a fight for attention. We've got to deliver a product both on the field, at home from a viewership standpoint, in the stands with a stadium experience that constantly improves, that constantly finds ways to attract younger audiences, the same audiences, but more of them, because if we don't think like that, we're going to fall backwards. We're just in this building I'm in is a testament to fighting forward in competing for attention and eyeballs and delivering entertainment. And that is what we have to think about moving forward. And ultimately, I've got to focus on the finances of my 9 teams, right? 7 of 9 teams lost money last year. That's not a sustainable business model. We have great metrics. We have growing gains.
Why didn't they make? Is it attendance driven?
No, you know what? We've got to manage top and bottom line, revenue and costs.
Okay.
And it's wonderful that our salary cap went up because we actually did drive more revenue. But ultimately, so was travel costs, right? We all face that in our own lives. Imagine transporting entire clubs across the country. So there are various metrics that lead into a challenged business model. I think my job is to understand how we can grow top line revenue at the league level and support the clubs at their own club local level, as well as manage costs effectively. If we get up into a position where we've got 9 healthy teams from a financial perspective, I think we'll have done that through those other tactics I talked about. We are going to be in outstanding shape.
I bring up the attendance thing because I was kind of surprised over the last couple of weeks. The Argonauts, who we're always making fun of here in Hamilton because they don't go to games, they have their best home opener in terms of attendance since 2016. BC, they've got Snoop Dogg. They're putting 50,000 in there. Here in Hamilton, we didn't sell out for the first time I can remember. Calgary was a little shaky, and I can understand they weren't a bad team. I think people are going to prove it to me now. When I talk to Calgary people, that's what they're saying. Saskatchewan was strangely, not full. And where I'm going with this is that because TSN on our 50 and 60-inch television is so attractive to just sit and watch these games, how do we get people to the ball yard?
I think there are a lot of factors that go into that, and those results that you referenced, there are a ton of different reasons that maybe support either great success or some challenges that we need to look at and overcome. I think the stadium experience itself is a fascinating piece to that, because you've got different demographics looking for different ways to consume a game live. I grew up in a world where I sat in my seat and I watched a game intently, and I got up to go concessions or bathroom. That was it. Now that you have a group that likes to socialize, they actually don't even want to sit down. They want to stand and socialize with their friends or with other fans, and then occasionally glance down at the game, check out the score, cheer, and then kind of go back. So we have to think about family zones and how are we attracting kind of groups that A, we are an affordable product, and B, have a nice area to sit and watch and consume a game and attract those groups. We have to think about our scheduling. In Regina, a Thursday night is a difficult night. They attract fans from an hour and a half away. That's who comes to games in Regina. And when they have to work at 5 a.m. the next day, Thursdays are a challenging day. That's their only Thursday of the schedule. It was opening night. It was a beautiful night. The passion there, I was there. It was fantastic. And I know they're ahead of last year in every game going forward. So I think you're going to see something different there.
Because the Winnipeg people love poking fun at them.
Even in that game, I heard it. It was quite something. Yes. Yeah. So I think there are a lot of things that we can work on. And again, entertainment, the game on the field, continue to think about game flow, the game quality, how is it working together, how are our stars performing, how are they creating big plays offensively or defensively. All those things have to go in the mix as we think about iterative, continual improvement.
Here's a challenging question from a standpoint for myself.
Okay.
And this is uncomfortable for me sometimes to bring this up, but this is the reality of where I am in my life, and where sometimes I look at the Canadian Football League, and we always hear it. I can go back to Orange. All commissioners, we got to attract a younger audience. Yep. And I agree with that.
Yep.
And I think there's a lot of truth, and you've actually said that. You've brought that up. I will use this for an example. When I look at your introductory press conference, and I wasn't there, unfortunately, because it was so early in the morning, I had to be here, and I had a podcast. But I watched it on CFL.ca, and they did a couple pans of the crowd. And I looked at the media that were there, and all the media that were there are either my age, I'm 58 years old, or older. Steve Simmons, all these people that even before I got into the CFL and doing stuff on the Ticats Audio Network, that I kind of watched and read or listened to on the radio or watched on television. And other than, say, the guys from 3 Down Nation who are approaching 40, I see a lot of older media. And I'm concerned in the fact that the message that I'm sending out here, even at CHCH, is it just pointing to an older audience? How do we attract the younger audience? And I know this, a lot of times we're looking at social media and that kind of stuff too. But how do we get younger media in there to spread the message too? Because I don't know if 24-year-olds are listening to me.
I know my 22-year-old doesn't listen to me. But I think it's an excellent point, and I think there are things that are progressing in a way that is bringing down the age of folks that cover the league. They just cover it differently. I can tell you at the league office, that digital team is in that 24-year-old range. I've been visiting with each of the club operations teams as I've been visiting each market, and I can tell you that their people who are creating digital content are incredibly young and passionate. I look at what TSN did this past weekend. At the Toronto Argonauts game, they had one of their bar down personalities, Luca, film the entire game live on TikTok. And so he was hosting it and filming it from the sideline, a totally different perspective, I think in vertical, a game, and broadcast that on TikTok. I think they had 20,000 concurrent viewers at one point. That is for a brand new initiative, and something that really I think TSN is just testing, was quite impressive. I think what TSN did with Luke Wilson, who may be bordering on your 40-year-old. I don't know how old Luke is. He's probably mid-30s. I shouldn't have said that. Let's call him early 30s. What he brings is a very different dynamic to a broadcast.
It's been very aggressive.
Very aggressive. And guess what? That causes conversation.
Yes, it does.
You know what? I love conversation. I love conversation about the league. And if he gives a somewhat hot take on something and it causes a reaction, guess what? People are talking. And that's what we want. We want people talking about the league, debating, viewing, watching, consuming. That's what we're going for.
That's a great answer, because you're right. I actually looked at his feed and I thought, boy, this is an interesting selection that TSN that have. And I thought I've watched him, sort of grow as a broadcaster on TSN covering the NFL stuff. And I went, well, this is interesting. Is he going to be able to hold a mic and be on the sideline and talk football? And he's done so, but he's extended it with the social media reach. And there were, as you said, there was a couple of hot takes, but then a couple of people I did see, they were like, this is the most I've seen people talking about the Canadian Football League on social media ever.
Right.
And you're right. And I think it's really important that you could argue about the hot take world, but it is there. Look at ESPN. Look at Stephen A. Smith. Look at all these guys on a daily basis.
I totally agree. And what I really like about Luke, and of course I used to work with him, is that his takes come from a place of football passion. He's not actually giving an opinion just to get a reaction. He believes it. And I think that's what made him such a fabulous commentator on the NFL, is when he described a play or he described a series of plays or how a certain player was playing, it was authentic for him, and he described it in a way that is different than what I've seen from a lot of American commentators about NFL. It was just came from a place that was really easy to understand, but also no holds barred. He would tell it like it is. So if he's applying that to the CFL, I'll take it. I may not always agree with what he's about to say, but I know he's not. I know he believes it, and if that causes a reaction and some debate and some conversation, I'll take it.
You just said Canadian American, and it just makes me think of a couple of things here. And I know you talked about this in your press conference when you came in. There was a time here we were kind of flirting, and I thought there was a possibility. I actually thought it was going to happen. 4-down football, the Canadian ratio. Are these things important to you?
Well, they're important to me for sure. I mean, anything to do with a game is important to me. If you're asking whether those are untouchable, I will tell you nothing is untouchable. If we say something is untouchable, we've just put blinders on and aren't truly doing our jobs to evaluate progress. And progress doesn't mean we're going to change anything, but you better be aware of it and evaluate it. We live in a world of disruption. And if you put your head in the sand and say, no, I'm always going to do things like I've always done them, you're going to fall behind and fall away. That is just the way of the world. There's countless companies who are out of business right now because they refused to change when change stared them in the face. They refused to take a risk. Now, we aren't going to take reckless risks, but we are going to evaluate every part of our league that drives towards entertainment. And so if that's putting a broadcast on TikTok, then we're going to say, hey, let's give that a try, and that's a pretty good idea, and we'll see how it goes. If that's understanding kind of those types of rules that you just described, we need to constantly evaluate it. No decision like that would ever be taken lightly. Those are big concepts. And my point I'm just trying to make is I will never say, A, we're going to do something because we've always done it before, or B, we're never going to do something hard stop without an evaluation. We should do both those things.
One more toughie. When I'm doing the games at the Ticats Audio Network and I watch the people walk by me and the passionate Ticat fans, and I would believe this to be true in Winnipeg, Saskatchewan, Montreal, Toronto, I look at everyone's wearing these jerseys, and I love seeing people wearing their colors. But then when I see the name and the number, Hitchcock, Morielli, Muska, Montford, all guys you know.
Big names.
Big names. And I think to myself, wow, what a great, we had the Garney Henley ceremony, which was spectacular. You were there. 16 years with the Tiger Cats. Spectacular. Legendary. Because he spent 16 years with one team. Montford, same thing. Went a 1 year stint with Toronto, but otherwise a Ticat, and will always be a Ticat. I'm scared sometimes when I see players, and it's fun. This free agency, this free agent frenzy, that I know TSN loves loves that little, those two words, free agent, or three words, free agent frenzy. But I'm worried about players moving around too much. Does that concern you?
That's concerned me as a fan for years. Well before, not even professionally when I was in broadcast as a partner, just as a fan of the league, fan of any sport, as someone who loves all sport and has had favorite teams in different leagues of different sports. I want to know that that star player that I love is going to last a while. So when I buy their jersey, I know I'm not going to have to put it away next year because that person is no longer with our team. So as a fan, I totally get that. And I think that, the way our CBA is constructed right now, it allows for a lot of movement and encourages it. And of course, yes, there is a benefit. If you want to look at a glass half full, to free agency, allow stars to move and get exposed in other markets, and that can be exciting. But I personally, maybe less so as a commissioner, I haven't really analyzed it as a commissioner, but I can tell you personally, I have the same feelings you do. I would like to, as if I had a favorite team, I want to have some favorite players that I know are going to be around a while and create a core and cheer them on. I'm not sure how to achieve that, but
the Players Association would have to be involved in this.
They would, and we have a CBA that's in step now for a number of years, and the players are the stars of our league. And so however we elevate that, again, I don't want to say no to anything. I want to look at everything, and we know that elevating our players and putting a spotlight on them because they are so talented and skilled, and they are the playmakers on the field.
They're the show.
They're the show. So how do we best represent the show to deliver entertainment to our fans?
Speaking of fans, I actually had a fan question. Please ask the commissioner how they're going to get Simone Lawrence more involved. If there were a bunch of 21s in each market, everyone's job would be easier. Would you agree with this man?
Wow.
I don't. This wasn't Simone Lawrence that sent this to me.
Yes,
this wasn't. Just so you know.
That would be funny if it was sent in by Lamoni Sorens. Look, what a character! What an asset to this community. I actually agree with the statement that if we had more like him, or more that want to bring out personality like him, the better. So I don't have a concrete answer. I apologize to the fan who said that, the fan who sent that in. But I agree with the concept. Those are the types of personalities we want to put a focus on.
I love that the community, when he was deciding whether to play for one more year or not, that the Ticats were the ones that approached him and said, look, we can do this for you. And as a guy that, doesn't come from here, was born in Pennsylvania, and he's made this his home. And I think that's so great and we have so many examples of players that have done that have said, Canada's okay, I'm going to stay here. And that they invest in the community like that. I think that is one of I don't know you would tell me more because you're a commissioner and you're more in touch with all the other leagues. I don't think there's a league like it, like the Canadian Football League for that.
Well, I don't think I would agree with that. I think we have 9 teams in Canada. That's more than other leagues that play across both sides of the border. We certainly see in hockey a number of our Canadian players settling in the towns in the South where they end up playing. So many that. That's across border, but often what you see in sports is it's within the same country. They may settle in the town where they've worked for many years if they do have a long career there. But to actually settle in a different country is something unique, and I think something so special. And I also am not sure we as a league have done the best job in amplifying that story, that we have. Someone like Pinball Clemens is well known, right? Is well known, who has absolutely embraced, got his citizenship and so forth. But there are a lot of folks like Pinball who've said, this is a place where I want to live. And I think that's a testament to the club that they've been playing for, the city in which they've been playing, and our country. And I think we should applaud that.
Commissioner Johnston, this has been amazing, outstanding. Please know there's an open invitation. This Red Couch likes you. And I'm really enthused for where you're going to take this league. And, you naturally can kind of feel a connection. I feel your connection, not only as a businessman, that's well documented in the things that you've done, but your passion for this league, I think, is going to take this league where it needs to go. And hey, we're CFL guys. We know there's lots of work to do, but I'm passionate about it. I call it my game. I hear the hockey guys saying our game. Well, the CFL's my game too, and I know that you feel the same way. So look forward to seeing what you do. All the moves that you make. I know there will be tough decisions to be made, but we're cheering for you. And good luck to you.
I really appreciate that, Bubba. I will be back on this Red Couch sometime soon, I'm sure. And in the meantime, I encourage you, someone who's got such a great history with the league, you have an open line of communication with me. When you've got ideas, when you see things, when you're talking about players and how long they last, I welcome them. This is why I'm going on a listening tour. I'm halfway through a 100-day listening tour right now across the country. So many passionate fans, so many great ideas, and we'll evaluate all of them and tackle them and see how we can take the game forward. It's a team effort.
Thanks for your time.
All right.
Folks, that's your Sportsline Podcast for the day. And if you've just seen and heard, we love talking sports, especially people that have passion. If you do know of an athlete, team, or event that deserves the spotlight, this podcast do want to hear from you. Do us a favor, hit that thumbs up, like, and share button, and be sure to subscribe because you'll always get the latest and the greatest edition. In addition, be sure to check out the other podcasts and content on the CHCH and Parrot Media platforms. For the outstanding folks that make the Sportsline Podcast possible on a daily basis, thank you so very much, and we'll see you tomorrow.